much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit, and now here's your host, Rich Barris.
Good morning, folks. Welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. All right, before we get started, don't forget to follow me on Getter. If you're watching on YouTube, that's great. Hit the thumbs up if you like the video. Hit the notification bell after you subscribe, and that'll let you know when we're going to go live. But we very much implore everybody to go over to the People's Pundit Rumble channel. Subscribe over at Rumble. Give us pluses. And of course, when you are there, right up there, you see the join locals button. Join the peoplespundit.com or no, peoplespundit.locals.com, Rumble's locals community. And that will help us bring you better 2022 election coverage. We'll get into the public polling project in a little bit, which is scheduled to run this weekend. Somebody caught an error on locals, in fact, which love the locals community. You guys have been sharing some great stuff lately, and I'm in fact going to go over one in a bit. But somebody caught it. The questionnaire was way too long, which I was, in and moaning about. Because I don't like anything longer than 8-minute interviews. I mean, that's just a lot for working class people. They don't like to be, burdened like that. Or really, it's not even they don't like to be. These people don't have the time. So I noticed a comment, and somebody caught that the food shortages and inflation questions were still on there, which I removed. And I'll go back and I'll see what else can be removed as well. This is the 1-year anniversary survey, which I'm not going to go all into that. We'll save that for the second segment here, or the second half, the second hour. But it is. And we have questions this year that have to be asked that were not asked last year. So it doesn't give us as much room to ask about other issues. Has to be more election focused. We will do our 1-year trust in institutions, and we added trust in agencies, which a lot of people on locals and a lot of contributors wanted to see. Do people trust the CDC, the FBI, right? Down the line, which we will tell you how we came to those agencies in a bit. But before we do, all right. So by the way, thank you for that. Is where I was going with that. Thank you for catching that, which is why locals is awesome. I get just as much out of you guys joining as you do from joining, to supporting the work we do. I get to be ahead of the curve on what people want and care about, what people want to ask the American voter about when we do these surveys, because you are the American voter. So it kind of makes sense to take input from you. Big media couldn't do it if they wanted to. Right? And we'll talk too about some other polls. But before we do, I have to comment on Ukraine. I have to do it. There's a whole other side to this story. And some of the stuff like Morning Joe, we're at war. We're at war right now, according to Morning Joe. You heard me talk about Eli Lake and others. We're just going to have to suck it up. We're just going to have to come to the realization, at least Eli was talking about a cold war. We just have to come to a realization that we successfully balanced India, China, and Russia against NATO. We did it. They didn't do it. We did it. We forced them to do it. And we're being led by a bunch of people who are stupid. In and outside of the permanent government, elected and bureaucratic. I have a clip I want to play, which may sound kind of familiar to you. It's like 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, 60, 70. I mean, it just doesn't matter, a century. We keep seeing these same tactics recycled over and over again. And there's a reason why we do. It works. Right now, it hasn't worked. So I don't know what kind of BS polls they're going to throw at us, ladies and gentlemen, over the next couple of weeks. But there has been no singular event like there has been in the past that they have used to turn public opinion in favor of war. The American people overwhelmingly do not want to get into this conflict. They are at best split on whether or not to send humanitarian aid to them. And that doesn't mean the American people aren't generous. They're the most generous people on the planet. But at this point, we're less than a year off from being fresh in the memory as far as this idea of sending lethal aid. It is very fresh in the memory of the American voter that we send a ton of lethal aid to the Afghan security forces. And $80 billion worth are now in the hands of the Taliban. Instituting a true no-fly, which is kind of a joke in and of itself, a NATO no-fly, but if Joe Biden was successful in sending American pilots into the air to enforce a no-fly, that is going to be a declaration of war. Because the minute that a regional hegemon, right? Hegemon. The minute a regional hegemon on the other side of the world, another hemisphere, shoots down either an aspiring regional hegemon or a hegemon, former one, a great power. The minute they shoot down a fighter pilot, that hegemon is going to take that as an act of war. And by the way, they will take it as an act of war, rightfully so. Today, I want to show a little bit different perspective on this. It's not that there isn't great sympathy towards the Ukrainian people. It's just that you don't really seem, or not you, because my audience is smart, but many of these people who watch idiots like The Morning Joe and read stupid columns in Bloomberg don't seem to understand that the Ukrainian people are hard to define. They're not uniform. They're not what Benedict Anderson would call an imagined community. Some are pro-West because of the interests, the special interests, the financial interests of Western elites, and others are not. And you're just not hearing the entire story. So first I want to bring a video on. It's a C-SPAN video. That's very concerning. And then I want to show you the other side of this argument, which, by the way, hat tip a locals member. This came, and I had been speaking to her, I think it was last week or almost 2 weeks ago now. And if you know people around the world, not listening and getting all of your information through a Western media filter, then you know that there is an untold story here. You know that sending those tax dollars over to Ukraine are not going to be used for humanitarian purposes. We're going to show you what your money has been doing for 8 years. But before we do, we'll show you another element to apparently what your money has been doing for 8 years, and then talk about it in the context of all of the war lies we have heard and we have gone over now for 2 weeks on the show. Let's roll this.
Well, I only have a minute left. Let me ask you, does Ukraine have chemical or biological weapons?
Ukraine has biological research facilities, which, in fact, we are now quite concerned Russian forces may be seeking to gain control of. So we are working with the Ukrainians on how they can prevent any of those research materials from falling into the hands of Russian forces should they approach.
I'm sure you're aware that the Russian propaganda groups are already putting out there all kinds of information about how they've uncovered a plot by the Ukrainians to release biological weapons in the country and with NATO's coordination. If there's a biological or chemical weapon incident or attack inside of Ukraine, is there any doubt in your mind that 100% it would be the Russians that would be behind it?
There is no doubt in my mind, Senator, and it is classic Russian technique to blame on the other guy what they're planning to do themselves.
Whoa! Back up. Let's take this in pieces here. Are the Ukrainians funding their own biological weapons programs? Their biological research programs? No, you are. Dr. Fauci's buddies are designing new viruses in Ukraine. An unstable Eastern European corrupt, filthy, corrupt country is the safest place for a biological weapons program? A Western funded, let's get real here, ladies and gentlemen, a Western funded biological weapons program? Does this seem very wise to you, considering one of the major hegemonic powers in this country not 3 years ago leaked on accident a deadly pathogen that killed millions of people around the world? Nobody seems the least bit concerned about this. Ukraine isn't even China. Their infrastructure isn't nearly as sound as Chinese infrastructure. Their hold on the government isn't nearly as sound as China's. Their loyalties aren't even remotely unified. It was thought wise by people in a Western political class to give these people a biological research program? Is this for when I tell you these people are stupid? Ladies and gentlemen, they are stupid. To the point, though, like I said on Friday, to the point where this is becoming a danger to us all. This is becoming a danger. Their stupidity is becoming a danger to the future of humanity. That's part one. Part two. It's Russian propaganda. That's such an easy scapegoat. Does Russia push propaganda, ladies and gentlemen? Absolutely. Folks, every nation pushes propaganda, including our own. I'm not even sure at this point anymore what the difference is between Vladimir Putin shutting down independent journalists and shutting down independent media than the cowards in the Democratic Party getting their oligarch big tech friends to do it for them. Which one's worse? This moral high ground has been lost. So this idea, okay, Victoria Nuland, a liar, a known liar, collusion truther, and vehement anti-Trump fanatic who sits there and pretends like she's such a decent person, such a classy, decent person. So well-spoken. She's so well-spoken, she's an idiot who gave the Ukrainians a chemical weapons program, a biological weapons program, and didn't see the potential danger in funding a biological weapons program in a crooked, morally bankrupt nation with an unstable government. So here she is, of course, Senator. Of course, we're very concerned about that. And, you know, it's very typical of the Russians to say, to say, that this is propaganda. And, we're very worried that they actually will unleash this attack and then blame it on the Ukrainians. From a great power politics point of view, that would be asinine of the Russians to do. That would be an asinine idea. It, however, would be a solid idea for the Ukrainians. Wouldn't that be the Gulf of Tonkin moment? Wouldn't that be the Lusitania moment? I mean, this idea, like it's a conspiracy theory. Are you really alleging the CIA could have been behind one of those chemical gas attacks in Syria? Who had motive? Who stood to benefit? That's what you have to ask yourself when you hear about these events. Because the history of them is one in which if you believe them, you're naive. It's not a conspiracy theory. You're actually naive. The Lusitania. Even Pearl Harbor, sadly, to a certain extent. Forcing the Japanese to attack somewhere. They wanted them to. Roosevelt wanted them to. Michael Hunt, Crisis in U.S. Foreign Policy. Read the cables yourself. It's not debatable. The Gulf of Tonkin. Lyndon Johnson. In Vietnam. And of course, we can't forget this.
And we finally call on Naira to testify.
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, my name is Naira, and I just came out of Kuwait. While I was there, I saw the Iraqi soldiers come into the hospital with guns. They took the babies out of the incubators, took the incubators, and left the children to die on the cold floor. It was horrifying.
No, you didn't, Naira. You're a piece of garbage liar and the daughter of a Kuwaiti royal who came over here, I don't know, maybe with aspirations to join Tinseltown. You suck as an actress. You weren't even good. But George Herbert Walker Bush paraded that crap all over the country because unemployment was reaching 7%. He really couldn't deal with the economic pain. I feel your pain, like Bill Clinton. So he decided, let's start a war. It benefits me at home. It benefits my oil interests. You did not hear the other side of the story. Just like you didn't with the Lusitania, and you didn't with Pearl Harbor, and you didn't with the Vietnamese. The United States domino effect. No, we installed a brutal man in South Vietnam, a murderer who couldn't meet the basic needs of his population, so communism sounded really good to his people. That's what happened. Lusitania, we were sneaking in goods to the British and pretending to be Germany's ally or a neutral nation, basically, who wanted good relations with Germany while we stabbed them in the back. And in this case, the other side of the story, if you haven't been watching the show for a few weeks, what you didn't hear was that the greedy, corrupt, dirtbag Kuwaitis were using new technology to drill on an angle beneath Saddam Hussein's border, across the border, and stealing his oil, as if their vast oil deposits were not enough for these greedy, fat cat version of, Mideast royals. And that's what we sent our sons to go over, and some of them to die, most of them to be just traumatized from seeing what shelling from a mile away does to a bunch of people who can't defend themselves. Once you pop the top on that M1 Abrams and come out and see what happens when a tank ordnance hits a human body who had no chance for oil, for George Herbert Walker Bush's re-election campaign, tends to mess with you a little bit. And now we're hearing this. Again, from a great power standpoint, Russia has no motive to do this and then blame it on the Ukrainians. They would risk isolating some of the new allies that we made for them. They would risk losing a vote at the UN Security Council. They would risk the goodwill of some of their own people, who, by the way, despite the garbage polls from the Washington Post reporting. They had to come with a Western-friendly pollster. It still showed that the Russian people were in favor of the war, but about 6 in 10 instead of about a little over 2/3, which is all of a sudden Levada is not a good enough polling organization. That's funny because I have read intelligence documents that say they are the most trustworthy. The PDF I shared with you on Locals the other day, folks, is from Harvard, the Kennedy School. And what do they say in that paper? They are the most trustworthy poll. Putin isn't risking a backlash at home. They don't like the Ukrainian government. They sympathize with the people in the Donbass, in Donetsk. Why? I'm going to show you. And it, in the end, ended up anyway in a thread, unrolled thread. So it's not like I'm blowing anybody's whistle here. But if you know people in this area, you know the other side of this story that isn't being told. This is what your money has been up to for 8 years, ladies and gentlemen. Okay? Actually, let's full screen this. This is by, eventually, this, like I said, this was a tweet thread. I know somebody, this is their friend, and the bottom line is people have been listening to Western media. They've been listening to the BS from MSNBC, CNN, Fox News, the New York Times, the Washington Post. I mean, they're unified in this. They're beating the war drums. Like Robert and I told you on Monday, Fox News has never met a war they have not liked. Where did Fox News get their money, their startup money from? Of course they're going to push the Iraq War and others. Where did Fox News, can anybody answer these questions before we start this thread? Maybe a lot of people don't even know this. Where did Fox News get its seed money from? Do you know? They got it from the Saudis. All right. Listen, let me give you a little backdrop here. All right. There was a summit before we go into this, because you really have to know how this started. There was a summit in April of 2008. It was a NATO summit in Bucharest. Afterward, NATO came out and said that Ukraine and Georgia would in fact become a part of NATO. The Russians came out and said this is an existential threat to us, and we will not accept it. This is our line in the sand. It is equivalent, like I said, imagine the U.S. lost the Cold War and NATO was disbanded, but the Warsaw Pact was still involved, around. They would not disband, Russians would not disband the Warsaw Pact. And instead of basically holding the line, they decided to meddle in the Western Hemisphere and decide maybe not all of Canada, but let's say Alberta and let's say Eastern Canada in general. We're just going to go ahead and make that part of the Warsaw Pact. And by the way, I think that maybe parts of Mexico were sympathetic to our cause because they're leftists. And we're going to have to, protect our leftist brethren. And because we're not, of course, claiming any identity sharing with the Ukrainians, are we? No, of course not. This is about Western values and Westernization. Well, Russia, in our little hypothetical, says that, the Mexicans want to Easternize. All right. So do, big parts of Canada, right across from Niagara Falls. Does anybody seriously believe that the United States would not declare that a line in the sand and call it an existential threat? Of course they would. No Eastern bulwarks in the Western Hemisphere. No way. We almost got into a nuclear war in the 60s because they tried to install an Eastern bulwark in the Western Hemisphere. And they gave them nuclear missiles to hold on to and point at us. No chance No chance anybody could debate me on this. No chance. After this, the West started, after the summit, the West was basically kept flirting and goading Putin. He takes Georgia. He says, screw you, I'm taking it. A weakened Bush does nothing. The world gets together, levies some sanctions, which Robert and I showed you on Monday did nothing to the Russian economy because of how Putin has structured it. And Barack Obama is elected president. Obama appoints Hillary Clinton, who has been investing in the fall of these pro-Russian Eastern blocs for years, can't wait, is standing over the carcass of Ukraine, salivating like a vulture. He watches Libya. He watches Obama meddle in all these other areas at the behest of Hillary Clinton. And he decides, you know what? At the right moment, I'm taking Crimea. Right up against Ukraine. You want to play games with me? You want to continue to issue these threats that NATO is going to engulf Ukraine? You're going to have to accept that I'm taking this only warm water port. You're going to have to accept that. And then let's see how aggressive you really want to be in Ukraine. That's when the U.S. hit the pause button and said, damn, that would really put us. There's no buffer anymore. There's no fake neutral pro-Western buffer. And when did he do it, ladies and gentlemen? He did it after the CIA engineered a coup in Ukraine to oust a democratically elected pro-Russian, yes, but a democratically elected president in his government. They put in a crook, Petro Poroshenko. You want to talk about a liar and a murderer of women and children, Lindsey Graham? You want to talk about a liar and murderer of women and children, Tom Tillis, Sean Hannity, Mark Levin, Joe Biden, Joe Scarborough? You're all on the same side on this one. You think that's because you're right in your righteous cause? Does anyone believe that these groups of people are being brought together because of their righteous cause? Because they're right? In both senses of that word, in both definitions of that word? Use your heads. Petro Poroshenko unleashes hell on the pro-Russian speaking areas, pro-Russian and Russian-speaking areas of Ukraine. Here's children of war hiding in a cellar in the Donbass in 2014. It's the quintessential image of the region suffering at the Western establishment would rather ignore. A conflict longer than World War II. Photojournalist Andy Riccelli, who died under Ukraine army fire with his interpreter. That's right, the Ukrainians shelled him. The same series of families escaping from the Ukrainian army shelling in the Donbass by Andy Riccelli, 2014. Look at these pictures, ladies and gentlemen. Are these combatants? Do these look like combatants to you, separatists? A child celebrating his birthday in Donbass. 3 candles stuck in a slice of bread. This one really gets me. The source is unknown. A slice of bread. Look into the eyes of Donbass. That's a photo project by Dan Levy about the children of the war in the breakaway republics. Veronica, Irina, Vika, and Igor, I don't need to editorialize. Their eyes do speak volumes. Look at them. That's what your tax dollars has been funding. Look at them. Donetsk Airport, which was bombed by Ukrainian forces early on during this war. Eerie images right out of the Tarkovsky Stalker. Nice dog. Just sitting there. In what used to be an airport in Donetsk. Or Donetsk. Sorry, I'm not Russian speaking. Shelling Donbass by Ukraine troops. A reality for its residents since 2014. Does that look like a separatist post to you. This dog is named Khan. He was injured in the chest by a shelling in a small Donbass village located in the borderlands between the breakaway republics and the rest of Ukraine. The owner's son is a medic and managed to save the dog. 5 cats in total did not survive. Before I go on, I need a sip of water. But also, remember what I told you earlier about how the Ukrainian people, how the Russian people, and if you watched my episode with Peter and George from the Gaggle, how the Russian people felt about the Ukrainian army. For Putin, despite what you hear in the West, for Putin, his job is not, oh my God, an unpopular war like Joe Biden might have on his hands, like Joe Biden did have on his hands, like, George W. Bush had on his hands. He's sandwiched between people who really are a rising support for the conflict, but then the more, I don't want to call them radical, because it's not radical. I've talked to everyday people who believe this, that believe the Ukrainian army must be punished. They must be disbanded because of the atrocities that they committed on what they view to be the pan-Slavic population in the Donbass, in the, what they're calling breakaways. Let me get a sip of water. What you're hearing is the total and complete opposite of the reality and the truth in Russia. And Nate Silver can't grade U.S. polls. What the hell does he know about Eastern European polls? He apparently knows better than the CIA. Harvard. That's who they trust. Doctors treating 2 children with shrapnel wounds in Donetsk. They got hurt at a playground. 1 did not survive. You want to talk today? You want to hear the media talk today about by the way, who's the source? The Ukrainian authorities. Why are they any more believable than the Russian authorities? Because our Western elites have given them money and make money off of pillaging their countries. That makes them more trustworthy. You're not talking about people with actual Western values. Ladies and gentlemen, they use that word to supplant for corruption and interests. So Russia broke a ceasefire and destroyed a hospital complex in Mariupol. People in Donbass would say, what else is new? So what? You just got a dose, if it's true, you got a dose of your own medicine. A Mona Lisa reproduction in a damaged 9-story building next to the ruins of the Donetsk airport. That's 2017. Dan Levy took that picture. 2017. Donbass residents after Ukraine shelling in 2014. And again, Andrei Stenin and the other photojournalists, we don't have any images from them past a certain time because they died. Because the Ukrainian army, funded by your money, killed them. Killed them. And this idea, well, Rich, it's not true. We always gave them military aid. A lot of that money just went towards humanitarian assistance. And I hear this from conservatives. Conservatives. The Hannitys of the world and the like. That's like you arguing that Planned Parenthood isn't getting funded to do abortions because it's not really allocated towards abortions. Give me a break. Conservatives have been arguing that any public funding to Planned Parenthood is illegal under the Hyde Act, which is, by the way, all but obliterated now, but it was illegal under the Hyde Amendment because it bars public funds for abortion. And that you cannot give an organization like Planned Parenthood a ton of money, who really doesn't do anything but abortion, but in any event, and selling of baby body parts, but you can't give anybody like that kind of money because of course they will use it to fund abortion. You may be giving them money for something else, but it opens up other funds for abortion. So thus you are in fact funding abortion. Well, I tell you right now, you are in fact funding an atrocity in Eastern Europe. Here's some more. Boy, that lady looks happy, right? Is that your grandma? Is that who you visit on Sunday for Sunday dinner? She doesn't look like she has that quality of life. By the way, you couldn't anyway. Look at the kitchen. Doesn't look like you're cooking much of anything in there. Gee, I hope she has homeowner's insurance. I doubt it. Here we go, more. By the end of 2015, several dozen Orthodox churches were damaged or completely leveled in Donetsk and Lugansk airports, each in what appears to have been deliberate shelling by Ukraine's military. Now, imagine if Russia gave Alberta, Russia gave Eastern Canada the financial means for a military buildup, and they started shelling Protestant churches in northern New York. Am I still the Putin party for you? Is that still the Putin wing of the party? That is a nonsense term being used because they don't have an intellectual argument to combat those of us who do. Another dystopian landscape by Dan Levy featuring one of the dozens of Donbass, whoops, sorry, I'm about to make you puke, featuring one of the dozens of Donbass Orthodox churches hit by Ukraine shelling as part of the ethnic cleansing that has gone on since 2014. Oh, you don't like that word, ethnic cleansing? What, you thought only African warlords and radical Islamists did that? Were capable of that? You thought only Nazis were capable of that? Prayer in Donbass church damaged by Russian shelling. I guess this could all be Russian propaganda, right? Dan Levy could be working for the Russians. 2018. I wonder if Dan is a Putin asset. Please. More images from Dan's Children of War photo series from Donbass. For these children, living under Ukraine's fire became the norm. Their eyes speak volumes. This series was later published as a book. Yeah, you really should check this out. By the way, I had never heard about it, and I did after I was told about it. And then, there it is. Anyway, moving on. And actually, give me 1 second. I'm sure you heard that. Owen, you know what that was, Owen? It's more material for your Saga of the Sod. Okay? I kid you not. We'll have new material for you this year. And I don't mean to laugh while I have these poor little children's faces up, but that's what that was. I totally forgot about that today. All right. The Alley of Angels, which you've probably never heard about, because I don't know how many exposés the New York Times has written on it, or the Washington Post has written on it. The Alley of Angels in Donetsk commemorates the Donbass children who died in Ukraine's war on the region since 2014. Where was the self-described civilized international community then? Well, this is what I wonder. Lindsey Graham, the year of offense, Lindsey Graham, the year of offense that killed women and children, Lindsey Graham. I thought only Vladimir Putin was a liar and a murderer of women and children. A girl waiting for food rations. A man mourns his daughter who died from Ukraine shelling while in a cache for humanitarian aid. Isn't that interesting? She's waiting in line for humanitarian supplies, probably some MREs, maybe a blanket. It's kind of cold there. So when the Ukrainian army shells your house, I bet you're freezing your butt off with no place to go. That is the body of a dead little girl under that white sheet. And that is a man holding his head in his hands in absolute despair. I have a little daughter. I think I would die of heartbreak right then and there. I would probably never recover from a loss like that. Could you? That's what your tax-paying dollars has funded. A woman sheltering from explosions in a mine she's worked for 35 years. These are the faces of Donbass that the international community ignores. Ukraine's previous president, Petro Poroshenko, it says Poroshenko, and his policy on the Donbass. Here, let's hear it, and then I will tell you what he's saying.
Тому що у нас робота буде, у них немає. У нас пенсії будуть, у них немає. У нас піклування під дітей, під людей, під пенсіонерів, під дітей буде, у них немає. У нас діти підуть до школи, до дитячих садків, у них вони будуть сидіти в підвалах. Бо вони нічого не вміють робити. І так, і саме так ми виграємо цю війну.
We will have jobs, they will not. We will have pensions, they will not. Our children will go to schools and kindergartens, theirs will hide in the basements and cellars. Think he was joking? That's Joe Biden's boy right there. You think I'm kidding? That's Barack Obama's boy right there. That's Maria Yovanovitch's boy right there. That's Victoria Nuland's boy right there. That's Ambassador Taylor's boy right there. This is who they installed after the CIA-led coup that ousted a democratically elected president. All of the Trump impeachment trial witnesses, that's their boy. They tell you they're over there, Maria Yovanovitch with her crocodile tears. I was just trying to stop corruption and the big bad Donald Trump targeted me because, I don't know, I guess because I have a female body part. Okay, sure. This is Christina, 23 years old, and her daughter Kira, who became the symbols of the Donbass suffering in the summer of 2014. Beautiful woman, isn't she? Look at how adorable that little girl is. They were killed during Ukraine shelling. She never let go of her child, and I'm glad the graphic wasn't posted because it's not something I would put up on the show. A covered sheet body is one thing. This is another. This woman died with the baby in her arms like a shelled Madonna. Where'd that funding come? Where'd the funding from that shell come from? I hate to break everybody today, and this isn't some anti-US rant. You need to know both sides of the story. We paid for this woman and her 10-month-old baby's death. They were killed during Ukraine shelling. She never let go of her child and has since been known as the Madonna of Gorlovka. This is tragic. Look at that little angel. The tragic and preventable story of Christina. And yes, I want to give you guys this. This is like I hate that expression, must read. But seriously, it's going in the link in YouTube right now. It's going in the link of Locals right now. And Rumble, what did I do? I must have lost the Rumble link. Oops, here we go. So while Rumble's loading up, crap, people are yelling at me because I didn't start Getter until now. Yeah, that was totally my fault. Here, Getter, your first thing can absolutely be the link. Please, Getter will see the public polling project. Yeah, things are a little bit like strange with Getter. It doesn't when we go live, it doesn't know we're going live. It doesn't pick it up. It's always delayed. So that absolutely. Yeah, Nani, your hard work and tax dollars absolutely fund evil. I'm putting that comment up there. You are 100% correct. And this idea that Vladimir Putin is the only evil man on the planet and somehow our leaders are so righteous and moral is total bull. Our Constitution is righteous and moral. Our system of government is righteous and moral. The people who are elected to defend it and implement it are not. We have absolutely lost our way. And frankly, this system of government was never designed to be a meddler of nations. The system of government was founded on the principles that, you know what, sadly, there are some really bad elements of human nature. And we must do our best to protect ourselves against them while at the same time coddling and fostering and promoting the better sides of us. But must do so with the very real understanding that government is inherently evil. It is not some referee of right and wrong. It is not some referee or superhero that comes around flying around the country or any other country, dispensing justice everywhere it sees an injustice. It is because we have forgotten our virtuous republic, the forgotten clause, the American social contract. We have forgotten these principles. We have forgotten a very, very big part of our own national identity. And we have allowed our leaders to do evil all over the world and at home. And at home. Who has more political prisoners in jail right now, Joe Biden or Vladimir Putin? The people of Donbass, and by the way, the tragic and preventable story of Christina, the Madonna of Gorlovka, was covered by Eva Bartlett, who traveled to the Donbass. Read that article after the show when you have a moment. I don't care if you take it in the bathroom with you with your cell phone. Read it. It's incredible. The people of Donbass describe what it's been like to live under the siege, and I want to grab this too. What it's like to live, or that's the same one, isn't it? Yeah, under fire. Yep. Never mind. The people of Donbass describe what it's like to live under Ukraine's siege, hearing young children talk about serious weapons like the fact they even know is would be surreal. Look at the subtitles, and actually, let's do this. It's 2 minutes and 20 seconds. Bear with me, it's important.
Как живешь?
Хорошо.
Что это у тебя такое?
Глад.
Глад? Прилетел, да?
Да.
Только первый грохот, я не знаю, с какой стороны мы услышали. Я говорю, давай бежать. Все, уже другого выхода нет.
Он бахает в этой стороне, и в этой, везде бахает. И дом бомбу прямо попала. Да так бомбили, что у меня уши закладывало. Всю ночь стреляли до утра.
Прям ракеты перелетали. Я теперь поняла, как сердце болит.
Я сидел рядом с окном, и раз, и у нас залетел снаряд. Мы добежали до двери, и все начало сыпаться. А там осколки попали в кишу.
Когда все развеялось, лежу, тут лежит сын мой, мама. Тут лежала, тут свекровь лежала, вот тут на этих воронках. А там чуть дальше дедушка наш мертвый лежал. Я детей похватала, побежала с ними в подвал. А когда уже в подвале посветила фонариком, увидела, что у ребенка нет пальца.
И вчера, когда я его выносила, он мне говорил: мама, я ведь только начал жить. За что?
Я, когда увидел маму с папой, бежаешь.
They're dead.
Мне было страшно. Чисто было страшно смотреть на них.
Скажите, пожалуйста, почему вы никогда не говорите правды? Это не ДНР нас убивает, а вот эти фашисты, которые окружили нашу...
Whoa! I thought Nazis was Putin propaganda.
Порошенко хочет войны, и он не понимает, что такое мир. Нас Порошенко предал, я хочу, чтобы был мир. Чтобы все люди мирились, даже если чуть-чуть поссорились. И не хочу, чтобы было никаких ссор. И никогда больше не было войны. Пусть они, допустим, завтра это все закончат. И не будет войны больше никогда.
Okay, we don't need the rest of it. Right? We don't need the rest. Casualties of the war in the Donbass the first 3 years per the United Nations. The United Nations from the 14th of April, 2014 to the 15th of November, 2017. At least 2,523 civilians were killed, 1,399 men, 837 women, 91 boys, 47 girls, and 149 adults whose sex is unknown. How could that be? And here's the link right here, if you guys would like to look at it. How could it be that we don't know the sex? Because they were blown to bits. They were blown to bits and their genitalia is gone. That's how. Sometimes human bodies simply can't be found. I mean, they're pieces of it. If you don't have genetic material of any kind to be able to tell, then you won't be able to. It's sad, but that's war. That's kind of what happens. But every time something like that happens in the West and it's their enemy who does it, then all of a sudden it's some kind of, great atrocity that nobody other than their enemies commit. And, in truth, sometimes it's unavoidable. That's war. Total war in World War I, World War II. There's a lot of women and children who died, ladies and gentlemen. That's just the way it is. We somehow later on in the 20th century began to believe, and Vietnam too, by the way, but all of them, we somehow came to this belief that technology would be able to we went from technology being able to limit the casualties of civilians, men, women, children, whatever, to now this propaganda use of an expectation that there can be there will be or should not be any women and children who are killed. And like I said the other day, if Vladimir Putin and the Russian army killed Ukrainian women and children in this offensive, and that makes Vladimir Putin a murderer who should die for it, then what does that make Joe Biden? What does that make Joe Biden, who just a few months ago killed an entire family of Afghanis? He sold it to you, and the country and the media tried to help him. He sold it to you as a successful attack on these very, very, very dangerous ISIS-K leaders. About a month and a half after, he orders a snatch and grab that goes wrong. The jihadi blows himself up. That's the most likely scenario that's been outlined by humanitarian groups that are on the ground. Watchers of war. It went wrong, and they killed a bunch of kids. What does Joe Biden deserve? Casualties in the Donbass from 2014 to 21 from mine-related incidents are also here. In 2014, 4,040. And by the way, I should note that it's a missile system that was referenced before, and it is a Russian-made missile system. And people would say, well, how did that happen? Because the government that was toppled by the CIA-led coup in 2014 was a pro-Russian government. And Vladimir Putin did give them defense systems. So when we toppled it, they had a bunch of stuff that would later be compounded by stuff we would give them. Like Stingers, Javelins. Anyway, I'm just thinking about an untrained Ukrainian soldier with an AT-4, which is the Army's anti-tank, basically shoulder-fired rocket launcher, or it's ordnance. It's not it's not rocket, but it's a high explosive round to take out a tank. I'm just thinking of the damage as a former soldier. I'm thinking of the damage in the Donbass that an untrained Ukrainian soldier with a score to settle could do with that weapon system. The Guard is yes, a Russian system that they obviously had right after, because that those images were 14, 15. So at that time, that's what they had to use, was what, the pre-Poroshenko regime, had been supplied by Russia. All right. Just massive numbers, killed, injured numbers. UN estimates the total number of conflict-related casualties in the Donbass region from the 14th of April to 2014 to the 31st of December 2021 to be 51,000, between a low end of 51,000 to 54,000, of which 4,200 to 4,400 were killed, and of which 7,000 and 9,000 injured were civilians. Specifically, civilian deaths are here. And I will give you actually just this thread reader app, except for giving you all these links, and you can go in there. And this way you can credit. She was, I don't know what the word is to share this. At this point, with the amount of propaganda and censorship, you could risk being banned for something like this. You're definitely at risk of being called a Putin puppet and a traitor to the West. If you're American and you're doing something like what I'm doing right now, you're the Putin wing. I never told you I was a wing of your party anyway. Don't flatter yourself by associating me with your party. Don't flatter yourself. And by the way, how could all of these conservative constitutionalists, how do they square their alleged belief in an incompetent and inherently evil government with these nation-building exercises? Rand Paul said it best. If you don't have faith in government to be competent and moral at home, how on earth do you have faith that the money that you take from your own citizens here to support such endeavors overseas will be successful? And I'm summarizing there what he had said. But you can see there's been a constant, yes, it declined, but they live in a constant, perpetual state of war. Imagine for a moment Joe Biden's elected, Trump supporters, and he just decides large swaths, territories of the nation are not loyal to him. They're not in agreement with what he wants to do with this country. So in the year 2021, he unleashes hell and kills thousands of Trump supporters. Yeah, he may slow down as time goes on through his tenure, but you're still dealing with, a dozen or so, a dozen to, a half a dozen deaths on a monthly basis. In a declining trend that eventually, plateaus at 24 a year. Would you say, you know what, they only killed 24 Trump supporters this year? I guess it's not that bad. One of Ukraine's main media sources, I'm not even going to try, discussing Donbass as a region that has a, quote, huge number of absolutely useless people, unquote. One of the 4 million in Donetsk area at the time, of the 4 million in Donetsk at the time, 1.5 million are superfluous, end quote, simply must be killed, unquote. Donbass is just a source of resources.
От ви спитали, як так може бути?
You know what, I'll make it bigger so you can see it. Hold on.
Тому що Донбас взагалі регіон, який, це не просто депресивний регіон, розумієте? Там настільки великий комплекс таких грона проблем, і головніше, наприклад, тому, що там просто дика кількість абсолютно непотрібних людей. Повірте, я абсолютно свідомо про це говорю. От якщо брати навіть чисто Донецьку область, там приблизно 4 мільйони населення. Ще не менше 1,5 мільйона, там просто зайвих людей. Що хочу сказати, нам не треба розуміти Донбас, нам треба розуміти взагалі український національний інтерес. А Донбас треба просто використати як ресурс, який треба, відповідно, з приводу...
You don't have to speak the language to understand what he just said. There were enough conjunctives in that in that sentence to understand that, even if you just speak English. And by the way, the definition of that is words that sound like other words from another language because they have a root source.
Розуміння Донбасу. Мені здається, що в мене немає зрозуміння жодного рецепту, що тут можна зробити швидко. Але найголовніше, що треба зробити в даний момент, як це
No matter how cruel it may sound,
є певна категорія людей, яких треба просто вбити.
There's a certain category of people that must be exterminated. Yeah, thank you. Stitz. Cognitives, right. There's a certain group of people that must be exterminated. I don't have a recipe, but even though it sounds cruel, we're just going to have to admit that there's a certain group of people that must be exterminated. Does that sound familiar to you in the least, ladies and gentlemen? That is fascism. Fascism is a system of government, but that is the unique Nazi twist on fascism. I thought Nazis in Ukraine was just Putin propaganda. Putin propaganda that you can find in the BBC, the Jerusalem Post, the Daily Mail, the Telegraph, blah, 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 and on and on and on. 7 years ago, you could find Western media outlets internationally, all over the world, reporting on Nazis in Ukraine that want to exterminate these people. And your tax dollars have been funding it. All right, hour one's up. We'll come back. We'll talk about polls after. You're watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. Don't forget, if you're on YouTube, like the video if you like the video, even though I understand some of the content is difficult to like today. But it's reality. Like the video if you like being brought all sides of the story. How about that? And subscribe. Don't forget. When you do, hit the notification bell. That'll let you know when we're going to go live. But we are imploring everyone to sign up to Rumble. Give us the plus, right, on Rumble. If you, of course, are on Rumble, you will see the Join Locals button right there. Sign up to the peoplespundit.locals.com community. The more we expand, when we have. So, people are understanding. Our conversion rate is great. We're definitely happy with that growth, but we would like to see more, of course. So the larger we grow, the larger the midterm coverage, the more sophisticated it'll be. I'd rather do more this year, ladies and gentlemen, than just simply get the graphs from Decision Desk and share a screen. I have plans. I got big plans. I got big API plans. By the way, I emailed some of you back on that. If you have, if you want a gig, got extra time, let me know. Email me through Locals if you have that experience to be able to write APIs, dev experience, because we haven't settled yet. We just haven't figured out, and be happy to share the API with serious, obviously people that we think are serious, and you tell us what you think it'll be. We'd be happy to help give some people a few bucks in this. Well, you tell me what bucks it is, but in this environment, which, by the way, this idea that Ukraine is the reason for the surge in gas prices is not going to fly. But we'll talk more about that after the break. While we're on the break, it's Bowen Band. Special thanks to Bowen Band, as always, for Bad Habit. But yeah, folks, I hate to do episodes like this, but it is what it is. It's like I feel like I'm starting to beat a dead horse here. It's getting a little bit redundant, but every day they return with these lies. And so if truth is going to prevail, then every day someone has to say it again and again and again and again. And I'll keep finding this material. You keep going with your bullcrap, I'll keep finding this material. Save your moralism for some other schmuck. We'll be back in 2 minutes, 30 seconds.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats is restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Get on a plane and take a one-way ride. Steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to disappear for a night, just to give into the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
All right, we're back to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. You can follow me on Twitter still at Getter. At Getter. The only difference is an underscore. On Twitter, at People's_Pundit. And on Getter, it's just at People's Pundit. But of course, the best way to follow what we're doing is to join the locals community, be part of the revolution in data journalism. If you're on Rumble, you will see it right there. Join the community. peoplespundit.locals.com. If you're on Twitter, of course, like the video. If you like the video, subscribe, on YouTube, like the video, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. That'll let you know when we go live. But we very much like everybody to join on Rumble, as many as possible, because like something like that, for instance, if you think for a second, Vladimir Putin is some like media censor that no one else in the West is, you are sadly mistaken. Tomorrow, that video could be deemed improper. I'm not allowed to tell the story of the Donbass, and that'll be it. On Rumble, that'll never happen. And as I told you this year, it's especially with it being an election year, especially with all of the lies with COVID, I'm just not playing this game anymore. I just don't care. I'll just support people who support me and free speech. And that is where we'll be. On Rumble, on Getter, on the Fire Stick, and that'll be it. I, at this point, don't give a damn. Not even streaming to Facebook anymore. Because I'm sick of being told by political candidates that Facebook censors their ads because they don't like the content of their ads. That's election interference. I can't support that. By the way, that should be illegal. You're in a sense, not in a sense, you are giving an in-kind campaign contribution to that person's opponent. There's no difference. And at one point, when we know we're going to have a big show, I'm going to stream to Facebook one more time just to tell everybody I'm no longer streaming there and to come over to Rumble. That's it. That's where I'm at, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Let me get the Public Polling Project up. Let's talk about what we're going to do today. Still, and I'll show you 11 minutes long in length, but I'm going to show you where it's at right now. And then after the show today, got a lot of work to do. After the show today, I'm going to go over and see what can be cut because it is Wednesday already. And I would very much like to do this over the weekend. It's a philosophy of mine. If I can help it, I will. Is it absolutely necessary to poll over the weekend? No. But I have this philosophy for a reason. There have been times where there have been groups of people that I know I can only reach on the weekends. And if you've been with me since before 2020, the election, then you know that. You saw it with states like Wisconsin, for instance. You're not going to reach people in Rusk or Polk on a Wednesday. It's just not going to happen. You're going to end up like the Marquette poll. Thinking, or at least if you weren't thinking or believing, you were trying to pass it off as such, that working class people in Milwaukee are the same as working class people in northwestern Wisconsin. That's why Marquette blew their poll so bad in the last three cycles. And in 2020, they actually started to show what we showed. We were starting to push people to do this. Not only, don't tell me who you polled and how many. Where did you poll? Can I see distribution and participation, please, by geography? And in the rural areas, did you speak to like disproportionate number of Democrats or something? Because I don't know how you could have Greene County, Pennsylvania voting for Joe Biden. It's crazy. So I have the philosophy and have now for many years that you absolutely need, if I want to know for certain that we're doing our best work, then I will pick the weekends. Or at least they have to be initially contacted through the weekend, because as you know, probably many of you, that people do not have to finish an interview immediately. That has always been the case with us. If they wanted to call back and finish an interview, they could do so. Even when we had live agents, and I don't even like live caller polling anymore. But even when we did, they were provided a number where they could call in and finish it through interactive voice response. Number one, it got around the robo laws. Didn't get around it. It's just true. If they have agreed to participate through a live agent, then they can call back and they don't need a live agent. They can take it through interactive voice response. And at any time, they could hit *7 or whatever, save their survey and call back with their identifier. Which, for those who may not know, that is your API ID in the voter file. And then, of course, if you're doing an SMS survey, which is straight peer-to-peer, one question after the other, then you can complete that whenever, and the agent will just see when you respond and you're back. Otherwise, whether you're emailed or you receive a text message with the link to the online version, which is what locals you see. So when I show you what it is and you're even allowed to look at it and take a mock version of it, that is what an actual respondent sees when they take the live, when they take the online interview. All right. So are you serious? Pocahontas is working on an oil company tax right now? Are these people for real? This is how you know Don is probably right. And it's not just probably. I mean, you've heard people like Joe Biden and Barack Obama say it out loud, that they want to hurt and bankrupt these countries and drive the price of these goods up. And that's the way for them to transform the energy industry. Look, I am I'm a real environmentalist. I consider myself. That does not include climate change alarmism. I'm a field and stream, clean ocean, clean water, clean act outdoorsman. You may see me in a three-piece when you see me. but my family sees me rugged. I like to fish. I like to hunt. Freshwater fishing, saltwater fishing, whatever. And actually, I don't even hunt that much anymore because post the Army, I just feel like they're not shooting back. It sounds stupid, but I like the skill because, if you have to provide, you have to provide, and you have to know how to do so. But I just I'm not huge on the idea of going out, and killing an animal that I could just forego killing to go to the grocery store if I have the money and they have it. I don't know. I don't know. One Army did something to me like that. I don't know. But I used to love it. And in any event, I consider myself to be an environmentalist. Absolutely. And I would love alternative energy. It's just that we're not there yet. We're not. The wind turbines I supported until they started murdering eagles. It's just not, the tech itself is not there, and it certainly isn't worth the cost. I'm not going to exterminate the brown eagle because fanatics like Elizabeth Warren and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez want wind energy. Solar, in case you missed the Obama administration, is not there. Not on a mass scale anyway. Even though Laura and I have all sorts of alternative energy from our garden to, but our garden in and of itself should, give an idea of how we think about this. If I can grow it, I don't buy it. If I can grow it and eat it. Yeah, the windmill is a bird genocide. It absolutely is, for people who don't know this. I have no problem adding solar stuff to my house to reduce energy use. No problem. But we're just not here yet. We're not here yet. By the way, I had this great response about other issues last survey before we get into the survey. And this guy was like, my top issue is energy and the environment, but not in the way you think. If the government would just tell us about aliens, we could get all of this alternative energy. That's a never-ending source. I was just like, and it was funny because let's say there is. He'd be right. Let's say there is some kind of higher life form. He would absolutely be right. And they'd never tell us because they wouldn't want us to have their energy sources. Probably. I don't know. I don't think anybody's a quack at this point. I've been, I've had my own share of experiences, whatnot. I don't laugh at anybody. Seeing is believing, friends. All right. Let's add this to the stream. Let's see if we can go through it together. So, of course, we're going to have, and by the way, this is Alchemer. I have no problem pushing people that I think have good products. Anytime we have ever asked them that we needed some kind of capability or can we do this, whether it's conducting political research or doing voir dire for a lot of the jury consulting work that we do, they have always been there and always, okay, we don't have it now. What would you need? Let's work towards it. Once upon a time, they were called Gizmo, Survey Gizmo, but now they are gone. So this is the primary outside of, there's a couple of good other ones, for two-way peer-to-peer texting. But outside of that, this is our primary online thing. Another great survey company, by the way, is Voxco. Extremely, if you want to consolidate. The problem at this point we had is just that we don't like live caller interviews anymore. After 2020, I am done with live caller interviews. I mean, if clients want it, I'll do it. And I'll offer it to them because there's still this stigma around digital collection. And there's this false, patently, empirically, demonstrably false assertion by fake forecasters and fake authorities on polls that live agent, live caller interviewing is still the gold standard. It is not. We are the new gold standard, by the way, which is the damn tagline for a reason, and we earned it. There's our registered voter screen. Of course, we will ask that, even though we are asking people that we know came from voter files. You just never know. What if someone's girlfriend answers a cell phone? Right? What if someone's girlfriend is going through someone's email? Their kids. You just never know. The registered voter screen's never coming off. All right? There's a likely voter screen. I wanted to show this to you because we do this now. It will get even more complicated as we get to the election. Some of you who were watching in Virginia before Virginia 2021, you may remember this. This is based off of, we want to know and compare what the machine learning model tells us about a certain voter and their vote history. And we literally can put it in there in the query parameters. This voter is 50% likely or more to show up for this election. And of course, is it perfect? No, but it's pretty damn accurate. So we'll ask people, certain to vote obviously means 100% you're going to vote. Likely to vote means the odds are greater than 50-50. Unlikely means the odds are less than 50-50. Certain not to vote means the odds are 0. Listen up, though. There's one between unlikely and certain not to vote. And it is 30%. That is when you can have unexpectedly high turnouts for electorates that for other pollsters would absolutely screen out these voters. They did it in 2016. They were 30% likely or more to vote. They're still unlikely, but it is possible that they could still come out. And if you're modeling electorates, if somebody says 30% likely or more, and then you see maybe something in their vote history that indicates that they are going to vote, then you may want to consider not screening them out. Maybe you'll look at enthusiasm, whatever it may be. All right? But in 2016, a lot of people screened out voters who hadn't really participated in quite a while, kind of like the Ross Perot coalition voter, and they came out for Donald Trump. And among those voters, they voted for Trump overwhelmingly. And it was enough if you were close in, like Pennsylvania, right? Susquehanna, I think, had a Clinton +1. It was completely defendable. Not some of these indefensible polls, but completely defendable. Well within the sampling era, perhaps they just didn't they screened out too many of those voters, or maybe they screened them out, all of them. So that was the difference between Hillary +1 and a Trump +1, right? In Florida, that's a big deal. The electorate in Florida can gyrate quite a bit, millions of voters. So it can really throw you off if your likely voter screen is only, 3 out of 4, 4 out of 4. And when I say that, 4 out of 4s, 3 out of 4s, 2 out of 4s, what I mean is this, and I can help you right now. Voting history. I voted in the 2020 presidential election. I voted in the 2018 midterm election. I voted in the 2016 presidential election. I voted in a previous general election before 2016. If they answer, and in fact are, because you can look at their vote history in the voter file, if they absolutely did vote and they're 4 out of 4s, and they tell you, yeah, I'm a 4 out of 4, that's definitely a likely voter. If they're 2 out of 4 and it's like a midterm, some pollsters may decide that's not a likely voter. All right, the reason why Monmouth had a potential scenario where Youngkin won by 3 points is because he was changing those turnout models. I always find it interesting, though, with the exception of Virginia, every time Monmouth does that, they're always completely wrong. They'll say high turnout will benefit the Democrat, low turnout will benefit the Republican, and in fact, that's not true at all. So like Rick Saccone versus Connor Lamb, a higher turnout would have led to a Lamb defeat. Connor Lamb, the Democrat, got lucky by having moderate turnout. In Virginia, he finally got it right, which was high turnout is likely to be good for Republicans, and that's likely going to lead to a disproportionate number, which could lead to an R3 kind of electorate. He was wrong because he had an even electorate he basically gave Terry McAuliffe an advantage up until like D+2. And the fact is, we told you and we were right. Anything D+1 or less, more right, McAuliffe will lose. And we were right on the money. Anyway, thinking back to the 2020 election, for whom did you vote? We're starting to get a lot of interesting stuff there. You know, the models them as very likely Biden voters. And yet they're saying some other candidate or Donald Trump. So if last month, it looked like, that basically there was a little less Biden vote in it. And people had said, well, that's why I think you have him low. Maybe the Republican lead on the generic ballot is not that high. Because, well, two things. One, I'm kind of moving with the electorate and what it tells me. And two, it's just more Biden voters refusing to admit they voted for Joe Biden because of the current state of affairs. All right. That happens. That's why waiting by vote is wrong. The New York Times, hell, even Emerson did it. You cannot wait for the presidential vote for two reasons, ladies and gentlemen. Number one, not everyone in the damn poll voted in 2020. There may be somebody who votes for the first time in their life in this midterm election. There won't be many of them. Well, history says there won't be many of them. It's not impossible. But the fact is, you can't wait for that, because think about a poll. When you're waiting a poll, think about it as a Google spreadsheet, and you have rows and you have columns. Each column represents a question, a demographic variable, whatever it may be that you collected during the survey. Each row represents an individual respondent, and the respondent for each row gives an answer for every single one of those rows. If you're applying a weighting variable, you will have empty values in certain columns. People who say, I didn't vote in that election, then you're telling the weighting variable to ignore empty columns. And you can't do that. I mean, you can, but you can really suck at your job too and put out really garbage polls. Ha! I mean, that's really what it's going to come down to. Because some software programs, they will tell you, do you want me to ignore empty values? If you do that, you're playing with fire. You are absolutely playing with fire, because when you wait, you should be looking at a few different results of that wait, okay? So there will be, even I'm trying to see if I can pull up an example right now of a missing variable in like something like market site, for instance. Let me see if I change a weight variable, if it'll pop up. Let me go 0.1% Republican, 0.1% Democrat. It will change the weight variable. I'll have to move it down. Okay. All right. So when it updates, it's, it'll give you a number for the effective base, the weighting efficiency, your average weight, minimum weights, maximum weights, and your tolerance levels. All right. And how many iterations are this ranking is being converged over? I know this sounds crazy to a bunch of people. You're like, whoa, where the hell are you going? The lower the number for weighting efficiency is the most important number. If you are ignoring empty columns, the weighting efficiency percentage will drop dramatically. And what it's telling you is you're trying now, let me say this in English, you're trying to weight to compensate for things that you don't know, information you don't have. And your likelihood that this is going to be accurate, right, is going, and your average weights are going to rise. But the likelihood that this is going to remain accurate, this variable, this weighting variable, is going down. So when we do it, weighting efficiencies have to be very high with us. That's why we oversample. Because even if we have to weight pretty significantly for a certain group, you're never going to weight up. You're never going to have empty or unknown values. You always want to weight down. You weight up, like we saw the Harvard-Harris poll do. Actually weighted up for conservatives. You weight up for something like that, you're essentially trying to fill in the blanks. You're asking math to fill in the blanks, and when you do that, that's fine. But you have to know what your efficiency rating is, what your efficiency percentage is. And if it's low, if it's like in the 50s, because you're providing for empty, that's essentially saying, if I'm right one out of two times. This could be right 1 out of 2 times. That's not good at all. And people do it all the time. You mean my response bias, AM? You talking about what's the non-response bias? Yeah, I mean, basically, it depends on different modes. It's a complicated answer. It depends on different modes. It even depends whether someone will abandon is really what you're getting at too. It'll depend on how we reach them. Did we give them a nice prompt, a nice solid prompt, and hold their hand through the entire thing, or was it spammy? Did it look spammy or sound spammy to them? Especially when we move into the era of like peer-to-peer, which a lot of people are going to get in trouble for because they're not complying. All right, direction of country. Generally speaking, we're keeping that. Would you say things are headed in the right direction, the wrong direction? We have that tracked. We're keeping that. Joe Biden and okay. I'm going to ask for your input, and I'll read your comments after the show. I'm not going to read them live, but definitely type them right now live. Do you want to keep Kamala Harris's approval in this survey or not? It's completely up. I like having everything every month, but sometimes you just can't. So it really is up to you. I'm going to leave this guy up to you guys and see what you think, and then if it's close, I'll just make kind of a status call on it. But I don't know that it's wholly necessary every month. Maybe Kamala Harris's approval rating is something that we can do every 2 or 3. I don't know, but definitely has to be if we're going to poll her in a hypothetical 2024 matchup. Is she going to run? I think that's the kind of woman who wouldn't care whether her poll numbers are bad. She feels she's the vice president and she's going to run. So I would expect her to be a 2024 contender if Biden doesn't. Look, Biden filed. He says he's running. I think he did officially file, but I don't think he's going to make it. Personally, we're a year in, a little over a year in. We're on a second year in now. What, a few months? 15 months? And he looks really bad. He's also extremely, he's just not popular. Even there are some people now who even kind of like him, but think he's incompetent. The percentage of people who think he's incompetent far exceeds the percentage of people who approve of him, but there still is overlap there. And I just don't see it. I think Republicans should want it. I think he's going to get clobbered. But we would be wise to start adding other people to hypotheticals. And you know what? There's her approval rating. Right now, I'm looking kind of at some of them. A lot of people are saying, oh my God. Techno data. Oh, man. Every time I bring up Kamala Harris, the jokes are just too much. Some of the stuff in locals is hilarious. Oh, God. Oh, Freudian slip. So everyone's saying if something needs to drop, let's drop that. People don't like Kamala. We know her approval has been in the 30s now for a long time. When was it that I'll track it on a graph. I don't think I put it on an Everviz chart. Kamala Harris's approval fell into the 40s way before Donald Trump. Joe Biden. She was never really popular. She had like a brief momentary bounce because she just was simply Joe Biden's vice president. Another Freudian slip. And I don't think she hovered positive for more than 1 month, right? And then she collapsed. I'd have to go back and look at our history of tracking because it's not something we looked at until they got egregious. Where was she last month, ladies and gentlemen? You remember? 32? Something like that? 34? It was bad. So, who said that on locals? I think it was Nick on locals. I don't want to attribute it to the wrong person here, but no, it was Flashkin. If something needs to go, then that's an easy call. That's an easy one. I tend to agree with Flashkin, but I'll wait for the rest of the comments. So far right now, it seems pretty skewed to get rid of Kamala. More specifically, do you approve or disapprove of Joe Biden on these issues? We need these. These have to be tracked. Although I will tell you, I'm making one change, and I'll do it right now just so you guys see me do it. All right. This is not an agent live interview. Or not this one anyway, not this version of it. So there's really no reason for us to say economy and jobs, immigration, border security. For a long time, we've said economy and jobs. But lately, I've kind of just been I've been experimenting with ways to reduce the fatigue rating. And you can do so by using little tricks like that. So people know it, they read it, they see it. It's immigration and border security. If I text it to them, if it's peer-to-peer, and we give them that issue, and then they say, what are my responses? We give them these responses. 1 is this, 2 is that, 3 is that, 4 is that. They know what we mean. If it was a live caller or it's a Amazon Poly voice, then you say immigration and border security. So I think in the future, we're going to start doing what I just did. Just try to cut things. It's not decreasing the quality of the survey at all. People know what we mean. All right. So let me mark this as not required, because I have a feeling a lot of you are going to want to get rid of it. Marking it as not required will let me know when I come back later that I need to investigate it for a potential drop. Everyone wanted me to keep these congressional leaders last month. Do you guys still want me to keep congressional leaders in there? Favorability ratings for everybody: Chuck Schumer, Mitch McConnell, Nancy Pelosi, Kevin McCarthy. Do you guys still want me to keep that? Go ahead and let me know, and I'll read the comments. Okay. I think it was Sandy who said keep it last month, and I was glad you did. We have been tracking it. It's remarkable how consistent it was up until a few months ago, which is why I think it was Sandy, which is why I'm stoked that Sandy was like, keep it in, because we were really starting to see a shift with Schumer. Schumer has been like kind of flying under the radar. He's not popular, but he's not hated like Mitch McConnell or hated like Nancy Pelosi. So 2 things interesting happened. Chuck Schumer became more unpopular, and those views about him became a little bit more intense. Kevin McCarthy had this big like 30% unknown. He was underwater despite that Gallup poll, which I don't know what the hell they were doing. Honestly, I don't know how the hell you could get like a 56% favorability rating for Kevin McCarthy. The truth is, a lot of people don't know who the hell he is. That's number 1. And number 2, the more they did get to know him, we have a very clear trend. The more people did get to know him, the more that they decided they didn't have a favorable opinion of him. And that was coming largely from his own party. I think Kevin McCarthy's best bet for his favorability and for his career and for the country, for his party, is to do what he states he will do, and more, because he's a very you should have seen him at this appearance a month ago. I know people who were there and listen to some of the things he said. He is really good at BS politician responses. Somebody will ask him about something, and he'll give this like rally around the flag party kind of answer that doesn't address it at all and leaves the crowd like, yeah! And the few, especially the one who posed the question, going, that didn't answer my question at all. So, I mean, he needs to be the person he's pretending to be. McConnell is extremely hated by his own party, by everybody. I mean, it's pretty much across the board. We have actually had some months where there were more Democratic voters who said they had a very favorable opinion of Mitch McConnell than there were Republicans. Why? Because Republicans view him as a blot. They view him as an obstacle. Democrats view him as ineffective and basically a fraud. Do they care if the Republican leader, is a fraud no matter what he says, as long as he caves at the end of the day? They like him for it. More than just caves. I mean, he is just flat lying to his base. He doesn't believe the things he says. That's a little different. Kevin McCarthy is to be determined. I know he's wanted to be speaker for a very long time. And I think he's trying to play a little safe game right here. I don't think he'll be the speaker Paul Ryan was when he becomes Speaker of the House. I don't think that, but I also don't think he'd be a Jim Jordan. And I think it's to be determined. I really do. And I also think that the results of the primaries for Republican congressional seats will matter. Will, Katie Harrington beat Mace? Will Harrington beat Mace? Will Kent beat Butler? Will Gibbs beat Meyer, whatever? Will Giglio beat whatever new establishment fraud they have decided to try to pack the lane to run against him? There's another one now. We'll have another talk about that on Friday. He's the Democrats' best friend. I kid you not. And I mean that literally. I mean it literally. Well, Kevin McCarthy, he will probably lose some of these seats if the Rhino wing wins some of these primaries. He'll lose those seats. But even if he doesn't lose, like a Mace will probably still carry that district. Will he have more Maces or more Kents? Will he have more Myers or more Giglios kind of thing? Gibbs. We'll see. I think they could successfully push him to be a more populist conservative speaker than he otherwise would be, because he needs the votes. We'll see. All right, we got the generic ballot. I think this is very important. We may start to lean people this month. And I don't really care what that does to the score or the estimated duration for the interviews, because not everyone's going to get a lean. 1 out of 10 will get a lean question, roughly, right? The undecided isn't going to be as big for the generic ballot as it would, say, for the hypothetical. You'll see, did I already add the lean for Trump? I didn't. You know what? Let me add it now. And give me 1 second. I'll add it right in front of your eyes. I might as well just add that to the question bank library, because we're going to use it over and over and over. So, oh man, there's a whole lot of head-to-heads in this poll. So I'm trying to just basically copy and paste from another poll. I can't add it to the question bank because it's got logic, of course. That's why I didn't before. All right. So, for instance, they will get a lean question if they say they're undecided for Donald Trump versus Joe Biden now. We're not close enough to the Republican primary to really start polling other people. Their name recognition is not high enough. Just met DeSantis a couple weeks ago, folks, when I was at the Hillsdale thing. Great guy. I'm not doing it to screw him. I'm doing it because his name rec is so low. He'll be down. He'll be down because people don't know him. So if you're a big DeSantis fan sending me all this hate mail, then frankly, you should be thanking me. I'm serious. You should be freaking thanking me. Because you don't want to see your guy down. And I'm here to tell you absolutely right now that he will be down. All right? And there's a logic rule. You get to see how this is done in real time. Only show this question based on answers to previous questions or other logic conditions. I'm adding that rule. So here's the 2024 hypothetical Trump v. Biden. It's question 11 so far. It's going to change. If they choose undecided, they will get this question. Very simple, right? And I'm going to do randomized logic, but I'll do that later because I need to add a script. But basically, these are randomized in this, okay? Watch. Go to layout. See, it says option sorting. When given to the interviewers, this has to be randomized. All but undecided is in a fixed position, and so is someone else is in a fixed position. Someone else will always be the third choice. Undecided will always be the fourth choice. But Donald Trump and Joe Biden will rotate at random. All right? And then when they do, you have to show them the same order for leaning. Otherwise, it's confusing. It's bad practice. So if it randomly decided to show Joe Biden first, then whoever gets leaned will see leaning Joe Biden first. Unfortunately, that requires me writing a little script to put in there. But like I said, you tell them there's some problems, they work on it, and that will be easy and a checkbox very soon. All right, most important voting issue. We have a ton of them in here. I added national security to other polls that I've been doing for private customers, all right, because we have this going on with Ukraine. Do you feel we should add national security? The more we add, then the more spread out, of course, you're going to start to notice these things become. I will tell you, nobody, how many people in a survey I just recently conducted? Let me see. In a survey I just recently conducted, and I'll look at one in Florida too, just to see if they're roughly the same. I want to say national security was roughly the same amount. It was most important voting issue. It was 2.7%. We could add it though. What do you guys think? Come on, locals. What do you think? Should we add national security? Because we have this going on with Ukraine right now. So it wasn't in there before, and people could just generally, they could just generally put in that and other, you know, when if they want to choose other and state what that is, what their other, you know, question is, they can do so. But for right now, it's not in there. So go ahead and leave me your comments, and I'll go back and look at them. Economy, cost of living, public education, coronavirus, vaccine and mandates, immigration and border security. By the way, in that survey, coronavirus fell to 7th place. Locals, I'll be sharing this survey with you on Locals today. Okay. 7th place with only 5.9%. And when we did our follow-up, asking people, let me add that in there. Why isn't that in there? Come on, Rich. Come on, Rich. Getting lazy, bro. No, I'm not lazy. I just forgot. Okay. Now it's in there. I know I designed it and put it in there, made it look all nice and pretty, but I guess I just didn't save it when I added it. All right. Those who picked coronavirus in the Florida one, 67% said the mitigation policies are too strict. They picked it not because they're COVID hysterics. They picked it because they are over it, which is why you see Democrats running for the hills on mask mandates and everything else. You're seeing public school boards, right, run for the hills. You see Congress 2 days before Joe Biden's State of the Union, basically be exempt from the mask mandate. You're flying on a plane, you still have to wear it. But, the CDC somehow says it's okay for politicians who are sitting in close space next to each other, confined in the same room. Doesn't make any sense. They're not sitting any further apart than someone in first class. Coronavirus vaccines mandates in California, the one we did in California. It's not the state, it's a district. Locals, you'll see. 56.8% said the mitigation policies were too strict, and mitigation policies aren't strict enough was only 36.1. Mitigation policies are just about right was 7.1. This one was a little bit more dispersed, but nevertheless, a major majority in a D+10 sample in a California district said that they're over this crap. Hispanics, 66.4% too strict. I don't want to say too much because, frankly, locals, I'll give it to you, but I don't want to give bad faith actors any information, even when the client says, go ahead, share it. I don't want to give them that information. I'm going to create a different crosstab that just shows the status of each of the candidates right now and then the head-to-head potentials. When it comes to juicy tidbits like issues and stuff like that, they can kiss my butt. I'm not giving rhinos free, top-tier, highly accurate data. So some people are definitely saying put in national security. If you haven't commented, comment. Go. Knock yourself out. Yeah. Foreign policy, national security. That's what it will say. Just so it's exactly what it'll say, and it'll look like this. Let me I gave you the little thing before. This is how it will be stated if we do it. If we put it in the top issues, I'll go to locals first because one brought it up. But also too, it's locals. Come on, mouse. Here we go. It'll look just like that, guys. And Rumble, YouTube, you're coming next. It'll look just like this. Okay? Rumble, you got it. YouTube, it's coming. It'll look just like that. Any day, YouTube. Any day. That's how it'll look. So, a lot of people are saying national security, border security. Somebody said we did do that differently. So, immigration and border security is one thing. And then, it would look basically, let me just add it. It would look like, and I'm going to move it like that. All right. And I'll keep it in there for now. If you guys say get rid of it, I'll go back and get rid of it. But I just think with Ukraine, it's something we should at least consider. Most important follow-ups are here. So if they say cost of living inflation, we're going to ask them food, groceries, housing, shelter, gas, fuel, utilities, electric, taxes, taxation, medical, healthcare, transportation, vehicles. You may notice that is exactly the CPI. Same thing, they'll get a follow-up. This is the same section. So depending if they choose coronavirus or they choose cost of living and inflation, then you will see, and by the way, issues have to be randomized too. They know damn well what their most important issue is. They'll read the whole list if they have to. They will pick the one that is for them. Putting coronavirus as number one is only going to marginally get you more coronavirus responses. Proper and good practice, best practice, is to randomize choices. Right? Unless it doesn't make sense to. Like here, it really doesn't make sense to. All right? You don't have. You could randomize too strict and strict enough, or aren't strict enough. You could do that. And anchor just about right. You could, but that's not necessarily needed. And neither is this. People know why they chose cost of living inflation. They're going to look through the options and then they're going to tell you which one it is. But for, vote preference must be randomized. Like you may have watched me put that. I went after David Giglio's competitor, Adam Gray. Obviously, whoever he hired, pushing a very straight fake poll. I have never seen a poll. First of all, he was the first. Your candidate cannot be the first damn choice. It can be if it's randomized, but you as a pollster cannot make your candidate the first choice on every single question. It must be randomized. And then I don't know how long that pollster's even been a pollster, because leans are asked after you give the people a chance for undecided. If they choose undecided, then you use logic. And the only reason possibly I could think that they would do that is that they have some amateur software tier. Maybe they have some decent system that they're using to take it, but they're not professionals, so they're not paying for branching, logic, and other capabilities. So instead, they just put leans right under. So are you going to vote for Adam Gray? Democrat. Are you leaning towards Adam Gray? Democrat. You can't do that. And by the way, Phil Arbaio, that survey was designed to hurt you, buddy. All right? That wasn't really designed to hurt the Republican candidates. That was designed to hurt you. You were dead last, even though you were the other Democrat in the choice. So why would they put Adam Gray first in two choices? Sandwich the Republicans between you and Adam Gray, with you last and Adam Gray first. That was a push poll meant to bring to donors and meant to bring to party officials to push you out of the race, Phil. That's what that was. So if you're not listening, somebody better clip this and send it to you, because it wasn't to go after my buddy. It was to go after you. All right. Trust in institutions. We got all of those from last year. Trust in agencies. Why didn't I add that to the phone? I didn't. I did the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the Central Intelligence Agency, the State Department, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the National Security Agency, the Department of Veteran Affairs, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, the ATF, and the Department of Homeland Security. I'm open to putting a few more in there, but if we could whittle the survey down anyway, I'm open to that. But I did two things I considered when I decided which agencies to put on this. One was how much impact, three actually, how much impact do these agencies have on everyone, everyday Americans, and and also the news cycle, right? So the FBI, the CIA, we hear about these in the news all the time. The State Department right now, obviously critical. CDC, critical. National Security Agency, bulk data collection agency, you could call it. It's a big deal. I mean, this is the intelligence community. They have a massive amount of power. Does the public trust them with that power? The Department of Veteran Affairs I added as part of my second, which is how big, as a matter of the budget, are these agencies? The one I was thinking of adding too was NASA, but it's just not in the news right now. So I don't know. I'm open to suggestions on that as well. And then the Department of Homeland Security, of course, is another big one. I was going to put Customs and Border Patrol, which is under the Department of Homeland Security. I'm up in the air with that and NASA. So let's hear your thoughts on that. And then the third thing was suggestions. And there were a lot of suggestions to add ATF, even though it's a relatively small agency. I imagine it's because of its history and because of some of the news that has been out recently and in its past. This is the Waco agency, right? This is the Ruby Ridge agency, both of which the FBI came in and further screwed up. But in any event, there were a lot of people who wanted this because there is a move to defund ATF, and it's very real. And you want to see them kick and flail when Donald Trump runs for president again. You're going to see them do just that. The FBI too, because Donald Trump has been surrounding himself with people and will be around people who seriously want to get rid of these agencies. It's not a joke. Like, he wants to reduce them to, underfunded cardboard box cubicle agencies. Registered Voter Economic Confidence Index. That's a biggie. We need that every month. I am very curious to see whether that at least picks up a little bit, or does it stay flat? Because last month, how low can this index go? What else could I have done to design this index not to crater or be volatile? Not even not to crater, right? Not to be volatile. It shouldn't crater 10 points in a month. But we have seen it happen. COVID, the pandemic, the vaccination trackers, we still have that. And then the mild side effects. I want to keep this because, and maybe just the survey's got to be a little bit bigger. I dumped Kamala and that'll help. Maybe we can think about getting rid of the trackers for vaccinations. But I'm curious to see what people, if their minds are changing on this, where they're going on this. But the adverse effects after the report that we got last week and then the new information this week is a big deal. I mean, are you aware that that report, basically Pfizer openly just admits that one of the side effects is COVID? So, I mean, you're really just admitting that you're admitting efficacy issues. And all of these people knew this and perpetuated a fraud on the American public. We have asked this question now about adverse effects. We have asked this question for what? I don't know, over the duration of I don't know how many months now. And it has always presented a very real, actually there are more if you look at them, but a very real pattern related to age. And it's terrifying that nobody wanted to talk about this. So when this finally pops, locals, we will be vindicated. We will be vindicated on this. And I say we continue to do it. I think it's important. And by the way, I mean, there's only a few people who will cover it right now. Like every time we do it, Steve, Bannon from the war, he wants to see it. because he covers this stuff too. But shame on Fox News. Shame on Fox News. Yeah, it's very important. Steph says it's important. I agree with you, Steph. I agree with you. I think it's too important not to get rid of. Yet, and on locals, and Joe says, clear, big correlation between type and gender and age, without a doubt. And that is the other one too. I was referencing. Big deal. Big deal. But we could drop the trackers, the vaccination trackers. So debate that in the chats. There's no bump. Marist is a garbage poll. Even Tip, who is using adults, couldn't find a bump. The good pollsters did not find a bump. The Harris poll even did not find a bump. Not anything of note. That Marist poll showing this huge bump is just completely an outlier. And I don't care what YouGov and the Morning Consult. I don't care what they say. They suck. They're horrible pollsters. Fox is a horrible poll too. If I missed the Fox poll, which wouldn't surprise me though, because Fox, that is their MO, man. That's their MO. And then, of course, we have our social desirability indicators. And then after that, I can go and do a drop down and show you. Here are we got party affiliations and political ideology, party affiliation leanings we started to add now. And let me show you what I mean by that. If you think of yourself as an independent or something else, like they said, they're third party or they're not affiliated at all. Are your views more aligned, or are your views aligned more closely to the Republican Party, the Democratic Party, equally close to the Republican Party and Democratic Party, or share little in common with either? I think it's important we ask that question. It doesn't take everyone. So when we do like a test and we run this and we see, then I'll get like 50 people to take it, and I'll see if that adds up. Is it really 11 minutes? The fatigue score is still very good, though. I may let this run even with that damn 11-minute estimation. Friday, we will do a series of 20 to 50 interviews, and we will see whether it really is 11 minutes. We can, Fox is banging the war drums, so they're going to put out a fake poll. Fox is a horrible pollster with a really left-wing nutcase as their Democrat pollster. And then, of course, they have the Rhino Republican. Somebody tell me when my tie bar is crooked. Oh, I'm going on the Benny Report at 3:05 today, folks, and I'll let you know when it airs. Okay. Fox is one of the most disgusting. Outside of their polls are horrible. And when you have a network taking money from Big Pharma and then lying about reports because of that money, when you have a network beating the war drums because of their interests, I mean, it all makes sense now, right? Why they turned on Donald Trump the way they did. They're no better. Outside of the man who is on TV between 8 and 9 o'clock at night, Monday through Friday. That's it. And frankly, without him, I don't know where they'd be. They lost a ton of their audience while Tucker gained. He's it. He's it. And by the way, this is what he said. And I have to give this. The man is the real deal. He really is. This thing load up. And then when it does, I want to read you what Tucker said about us. The big polls were way off in this election. Way off. So off that they probably affected the election itself. They won't admit it, but it's clearly true. At the same time, some of the small independent polls, thank you for calling me independent, Tucker, because I don't like being called right-wing or Republican. I am not a Republican pollster. I poll for left-wing corporations. I poll for anyone who has a legitimate research project. It's not my fault that Democratic candidates are just not simpatico. Some of the small independent polls that everyone loves to mock turned out to be more accurate. One of the more accurate pollsters is known as Big Data Poll. Thank you guys, because he would never have seen all that stuff if it wasn't for you guys. How would people even see it if you guys weren't there? I'd be basically polling and talking to myself. Right? It wouldn't be very effective. Is it fair to call me the populist pollster? You know what? Yeah, probably. Because that doesn't put me on the right or the left. And I think that there is a lot of synergy between left-wing and right-wing populists that generally have a belief, a very true belief, that it is us versus them. It's the political class and the powerful versus everybody else, that the powerful use their power for an advantage over everybody else, and that nobody speaks for the other, the rest of us, the us versus them. Nobody speaks for us. And I do think that's fair, because I like to consider myself. Look at my nickname, right? The People's Pundit. Sounds almost my old man was like, sounds almost commie like, Rich, And yeah, I guess it can, But the fact is, it's definitely populist, not communist. Somebody's got to tell the truth for the people themselves. Somebody's got to do it. So, yeah, I think that's fair. And it doesn't align me with any one party, which I am not aligned with. I frankly would have no problem polling for a Democratic candidate if somebody I believed in or thought was a good person. The corporate work we do, I can't, be as open about some of this other stuff, but I think you guys would be shocked to find out the names of some of these woke corporations who have called us and retained our services. I think you would be stunned, considering some of their public takes on things. Because they don't care what the fraud with the fake pollster scorecard says. When they are looking to hire someone, they're like, find me the most accurate guy. This is our brand, damn it. Find me the guy. And they don't really care what he has to say, or any of them. It's that simple. And so it's just that, the political sphere mucks everything up. It really does. So it's like they put an R next to your name when they aggregate your poll. I hate that crap. If we and Rasmussen, Trafalgar, Susquehanna, if we're all right-wing, then what the hell does that make them? What does it make the ABC, the ABC Washington Post poll when they have Biden up 17 points in Wisconsin? Why isn't there a D next to their name? It should be an N for nutcase. Not even a D. So Evan polling Kemp versus Purdue. I do have a client who wants to poll Kemp versus Purdue. I'm waiting for him to come back around and let me know when he's ready to rock. I had polled Georgia for him before, but that was before Purdue got in. It's not even that race that I'm most interested in the results. It's the Senate race. I would love to, because you may have noticed, folks, we put out that Walker +4, and then miraculously everyone mirrored our results. 2, 4, 6, right? Everybody had Warnock up. I drop a Walker +4, and all of a sudden everybody is like, oh, yeah. No, actually, we just did it again. Walker +2. That's called mirroring. And you'll hear people, well, that was what it was called when I was coming up. A lot of people call it herding now because of others. But we called it mirroring. You're mirroring the results of other pollsters. Politics does ruin everything. That's Viva Fry's comment. It's true. It's true. Vendors, other pollsters, great relationships we have with these people. They know what has happened to not just me, but others, is a tragedy. It's tragedy. It's just a shame that only Jim and I, and again, I speak of Jim from the heroic Jim Lee from Susquehanna. It is a bigger tragedy that it is only Jim and myself who really seem willing to stand up and really level the criticism. Not some stupid, quirky remark. To really call it out where it needs to be. Because we care enough about the industry and what it means for the public. It's supposed to be a public service. You have to keep the faith of the public. You cannot betray them by doing what they do, because it is a betrayal. And you could damage the country with faulty misinformation. All right? They don't give a damn. They don't care. All right, so with that in mind, we're over 2:10. And I got an interview filming to do at 3:05 and a bunch of other stuff to do. But we'll see you back, of course, Friday. Don will be here. We'll finalize the questionnaire on Friday. And then we will start running it. We'll finalize the questionnaire during Inside the Numbers. After the show, I'll do some test interviews. We'll see what the time is. Hopefully that's good. Maybe there's some modest adjustments we have to make, which we'll have to talk about if that's the case. But hopefully not. And we roll. We start rolling Friday through Sunday. And we're good to go. And we'll have the results by next week, early next week. And of course, if you are a member of the peoplespundit.locals.com community, you're not only going to get them early, you're going to get exclusive stuff I'm not going to share with everybody else. All right? So that's part of the perk of joining the locals community. What else? Let's see. Yeah, before I go, follow me on Getter. Follow me on Twitter, on Getter, at People's Pundit, on Twitter, at People's_Pundit. And you can, definitely still watch on YouTube. I see a lot of you still on YouTube. You like the tube. If you haven't already subscribed, please consider doing so. Hit the notification bell. That'll let you know when we're going to go live. And of course, give us the like. Give us the little thumbs up. But we are definitely imploring everybody to sign up for Rumble. Subscribe to the People's Pundit, the Rumble channel. And when you're there, it makes it very easy for you to join the revolution in data journalism. Little bit right there. It says, join locals. And that will take you right to the peoplespundit.locals.com community. Not only will you get all, this stuff I was just talking about, it's a real community over there. It's not really a social media. It's a social something. But I guess that's why the community is the better word. But also what you'll be doing is helping us to prepare for the 2022 midterm elections. The larger we grow, the more we'll be able to do with it. And the truth is we're getting up on it, because when we partner with these people to provide all of this granular election data, they kind of want this in stone sooner rather than later. And it isn't cheap. So, that's why I'm kind of like making these pitches now to get going, trying to steamroll. We had great growth in locals last year. And this is an election year, so I really don't see any reason why we shouldn't get even more growth this year. And that would help quite a bit. All right. With that, I'm going to go. Everyone have a great rest of the day. Of course, thank you so much for watching. I'll give you Laura your best if she hasn't jumped in and said hello. Little under the, not sick, no COVID, don't worry. A little under the weather as the baby she's chasing around. So it was a little bit difficult for today. But yeah, we'll see you back on Friday as always. And, I know the first hour of the show was dark, but it had to be done. And I appreciate everybody sticking with it. See you on Friday. Special thanks as always to the Bone Band. I'm out, folks. Deuces.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats its restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Get on a plane and take a one-way ride. Steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to disappear for a night. Just to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit.